Welcome to the debate. Today we're diving into the fascinating culinary world of the shrimp boat and their, delightful DC peanut butter and jelly creations. Our discussion centers on the article's intriguing presentation of these, unique sandwich variations and, crucially, their elaborate homemade sauces and spreads. The central question we're exploring is this. Does the extensive culinary ambition behind the shrimp boat's DC PB&J creations, particularly the significant investment in crafting these homemade spreads, consistently deliver an elevated and genuinely favorite-worthy experience that truly justifies the effort for each described variation? My argument will be that these meticulously prepared homemade spreads are not just integral, but foundational to the unique experience promised, and that their quality absolutely justifies the effort, elevating these from simple sandwiches to, culinary statements.
And I'll be offering a counter perspective. While appreciating the artistry, I question whether the considerable effort involved in preparing each of these specific homemade spreads consistently translates to a proportional elevation across all the described recipes. I'm skeptical that every sandwich variation, despite its homemade component, achieves a universally favorite-worthy status that fully vindicates such a significant investment of time and resources.
Okay, I understand why one might eye the ingredient list and prep times with a measure of skepticism, but my view is that this perspective maybe misses the fundamental intent behind the shrimp boat's creations. The article explicitly positions these not merely as sandwiches, but as masterpieces in their own right, where the homemade spreads are the very mechanism to elevate your peanut butter and jelly creations to new heights, adding a touch of homemade goodness for a truly unique and flavorful experience. Consider the peanut butter and banana with strawberry jam on honey wheat bread, heralded as a timeless favorite. The simple elegance of a homemade strawberry jam, crafted with fresh berries, granulated sugar, and a hint of lemon juice, is absolutely crucial. That fresh, bright, nostalgic sweetness isn't something a mass-produced, shelf-stable jam can, truly replicate. It's about concentrating the fruit's true essence.
Or take the peanut butter and apple slices with orange marmalade on cinnamon raisin bread. Here, the marmalade is described as providing a zesty twist of citrusy sweetness, perfectly complementing the refreshing crunch of the apple. The effort in thinly slicing 4 large navel oranges and 2 lemons for that marmalade isn't just arbitrary. It's about achieving a specific textural complexity and that vibrant, almost piquant citrus burst that is essential, I feel essential for this particular sandwich to achieve its distinct flavor profile. These recipes are designed as synergistic wholes. The homemade spreads are not an add-on, but an indispensable component in achieving these articulated, distinct, and ultimately favorite-worthy outcomes for each combination.
I appreciate that emphasis on synergy, but I find myself remaining, unconvinced that the effort for every homemade spread consistently justifies the outcome for each specific sandwich variation described. While the article certainly makes grand assertions about deliciousness and uniqueness, let's be pragmatic here. The process for that orange marmalade you just praised requires simmering for about 1.5 hours until the peels are tender and the mixture thickens. After that meticulous slicing, that's a considerable time commitment for a single condiment.
It is, yeah.
Similarly, the grape jelly demands crushing grapes, an initial cook, then painstakingly straining through a fine mesh sieve to remove every solid, and only then returning the liquid to cook further. We're talking about a multi-stage, labor-intensive process for what is ultimately a sandwich spread. While handmade often implies superior quality, the central question for me is whether this level of commitment truly transforms each specific sandwich into a masterpiece or universally favorite-worthy, to an extent that it proportionally rewards such an investment of time, specialized ingredients, and energy. The text speaks of a delightful range of flavors, but range doesn't inherently guarantee consistent, exceptional elevation across all 5, nor does it definitively prove that the homemade spreads are always the primary irreplaceable factor defining a sandwich as a favorite.
It seems we both agree on the significant effort involved, so let's directly confront this core tension. what I perceive as the craftsmanship premium versus what you framed as questioning its utility or perhaps diminishing returns. I'd challenge the premise that this is simply too much work for a sandwich. These creations aren't aiming for everyday utility. They're presented as integral components for the shrimp boat's inventive PB&J variations, implying an elevated, perhaps occasional culinary experience. The deliberate investment of time becomes a signal of authenticity, a tangible manifestation of the slow food ethos that I think adds significant experiential value. The delightful flavor in the fig preserves, for instance, isn't just a claim. It's achieved precisely because of the fresh figs and that careful simmering for about 45 minutes, which concentrates their natural sweetness and develops a complex, almost caramelized depth. This is where the magic truly happens.
Mm-mm.
The zingy citrus flavor of the orange marmalade, indeed taking 1.5 hours, is what truly defines and elevates the peanut butter and apple slices sandwich it's paired with. The effort is precisely what differentiates this homemade goodness from something mass-produced. It's about crafting specific, nuanced flavors and textures that a generic, shelf-stable jar simply cannot replicate. These unique flavor profiles are not just additions, they are what allow these sandwiches to stand out as masterpieces in their own right, justifying the premium of craftsmanship.
Okay, I acknowledge the argument for a craftsmanship premium and the slow food ethos, but we must also critically examine the return on that investment for the consumer's palate. The grape jelly recipe's multi-step process, initial cooking, meticulous straining, and then a second reduction, is indeed geared towards achieving a crystal clear, smooth texture, but it's an adherence to a specific jelly ideal. Does this always translate to a superior flavor experience, or is it sometimes sacrificing some of the fruit's more robust, pulpy character for aesthetic reasons? And might that not be optimal for a hearty PB&J?
That's a fair point on texture preference.
And the fig preserves, too, demanding 45 minutes of simmering, certainly deepens the flavor. But for every spread, for every specific sandwich application, does this level of culinary purism consistently justify itself compared to, say, a high-quality artisanal store-bought jam that bypasses hours of home kitchen labor? For me, the question isn't whether homemade is good, it's about that crucial threshold. Is the taste difference so profound and universally appreciated that it mandates these extensive preparations, or are we in some instances valuing the process more than the perceptible product enhancement for the end user? I suspect we encounter diminishing returns for many of these applications.
Moving from the justification of effort, let's consider the core design. Do these homemade spreads truly work with each recipe consistently? The article makes it unequivocally clear that these delightful variations wouldn't be complete without their flavorful sauces and spreads. This suggests a thoughtful, almost, engineering-like approach to flavor pairing. Each spread is explicitly linked to a specific sandwich for a reason, creating what I see as deliberate sensory synergy. Take the peanut butter and marshmallow fluff with raspberry jam on brioche. The airy, sweet, and gooey marshmallow fluff could easily become cloying.
Yeah, very sweet.
Right? But it finds its necessary balance, its cutting agent, in the zinging of raspberry jam. This homemade raspberry jam, with its combination of fresh raspberries, sugar, and lemon, provides precisely that specific, zesty twist the article highlights. This isn't just a random pairing. It's a carefully considered complement to create what's described as a decadent treat. The tartness of the raspberry cuts through the richness, preventing palate fatigue and creating a more dynamic, engaging experience. Similarly, the richness of peanut butter pairs perfectly with honey, and the fruity sweetness of fig preserves, served on whole grain bread, creates a delightful combination. These pairings feel intentional and designed for harmonious interaction, ensuring the spreads contribute directly and optimally to the desired experience for each sandwich.
Advocate, I appreciate the vision of synergy and culinary engineering you paint, but where do we draw the line between a genuinely transformative pairing and one that simply offers an interesting, perhaps even distracting contrast?
While intentionality is clear, I question whether these pairings are truly optimal for every combination or if some are simply interesting without being consistently superior to what a less labor-intensive approach might achieve. Let's revisit the peanut butter and bacon with grape jelly on toasted white bread. The text calls the pairing with grape jelly classic, but the primary irresistible crunch and savory satisfaction clearly derive from the bacon. Does the effort of making homemade grape jelly, that whole process of crushing, cooking, and extensive straining, genuinely elevate this specific combination above what a good quality, readily available grape jelly could provide?
For that specific one, maybe the argument is weaker.
Or for the marshmallow fluff and raspberry jam, is the zinging of raspberry jam always the perfect partner for something already so sweet and gooey? Or could it, for some palates, create an imbalance rather than that perfect harmony you describe? The article claims these pairings work, but it offers no objective measure of success for each specific combination, leaving ample room for individual preference to determine if the homemade spread truly enhances every particular pairing or simply offers a novel twist that doesn't necessarily improve the overall experience. The complexity of the homemade spread doesn't automatically guarantee it's the best match.
Your point about optimal versus merely interesting pairings leads us quite naturally to the question of what truly constitutes a favorite-worthy sandwich and spread in this context. I challenge the idea that the favorite-worthy claim is purely subjective or baseless. Instead, I propose that this descriptor emerges directly from the careful crafting, the inventive nature, and the unique sensory experience of these specific variations, allowing them to stand out prominently within DC's food culture. The timeless favorite label for the peanut butter and banana with strawberry jam is a testament to its enduring, almost universal appeal. An appeal that is, I'd argue, undeniably enhanced by the fresh, vibrant homemade jam. It taps into a collective culinary memory, but with an elevated execution.
Okay.
Similarly, the inventive nature of the peanut butter and apple slices with orange marmalade, with its zesty twist and refreshing crunch, makes it a compelling contender for a favorite because it offers a genuinely distinct and memorable experience that diverges from the expected. As for the spreads themselves, the orange marmalade, despite its extensive preparation, promises a zingy citrus flavor and textural nuance that offers a truly unique and memorable experience that sets it apart. The article highlights these as creative twists on this classic favorite, implying that the very inventiveness, the dedication to homemade quality, and the resulting distinctiveness contribute significantly to their elevated favorite status within this specific culinary landscape. They become favorites because they deserve to be, through their curated excellence.
While I can appreciate the argument for intentional design and the idea that inventive qualities contribute to a favorite status, the article broadly labels these as DC's favorite peanut butter and jelly sandwich variations, yet it offers no explicit basis or empirical data for this claim beyond descriptive language. We're left with assertion, really, not evidence. Given the described range, it's almost inevitable that some combinations are bound to be more universally appealing and thus more favorite-worthy than others. For example, the peanut butter and marshmallow fluff with a raspberry jam on brioche. It sounds like a very specific, perhaps even niche taste experience. A decadent treat for some, certainly, but potentially overly sweet or complex for others who might not consider it a universal favorite in the same vein as the more straightforward, comforting peanut butter and banana with strawberry jam.
Right, that's likely true.
Furthermore, among the spreads themselves, while all demand significant effort, some might provide a more broadly appreciated flavor profile. Is the unique, delightful fig flavor from the fig preserves a guaranteed crowd pleaser and thus favorite-worthy for most palates, compared to the more broadly accessible and universally beloved sweet and fruity strawberry jam? Without actual metrics of popularity or preference, the designation of favorite remains largely subjective and perhaps, well, more aspirational than empirically true for each described variation. It relies heavily on individual palate and preference, which just can't be universalized. And that inherent subjectivity, perhaps, is part of the charm and the very challenge of culinary evaluation itself.
It invites us to consider what makes a dish truly exceptional.
Indeed. And how we measure that exceptionalism.
So, we've thoroughly explored whether the shrimp boat's homemade spreads consistently work with each recipe, rigorously debated if the effort involved is always justified, and delved into how we might interpret which sandwiches and spreads genuinely achieve favorite-worthy status.
While the advocate has masterfully highlighted the intentional design, the philosophical commitment to craft, and the flavor elevation that homemade spreads undeniably bring to each delightful DC peanut butter and jelly creation, suggesting that this significant effort is integral to their unique appeal and favorite-worthy status.
And I maintain that the specific crafting and sensory engineering elevates these far beyond mere sandwiches, transforming them into curated culinary experiences that warrant the effort.
And I have raised pertinent questions about the practical consistency of that elevation across all recipes, questioning the universal justification of the significant effort involved in preparing each spread, and challenging the subjective claim of favorite without further data to support a truly universal appeal for every single combination.
Our discussion today really underscores the fascinating complexity of culinary evaluation, demonstrating how the perceived value of effort, the meticulous synergy of ingredients, broader culinary philosophies, and, of course, individual preferences all converge to define what we deem truly exceptional.
Yeah, there is clearly much more to delve into within the shrimp boats recipes, the art of crafting extraordinary sandwich experiences, and, perhaps most importantly, the criteria by which we, as discerning palates, truly deem them favorite-worthy.